Hi, Year Six, and welcome to your English lesson for Wednesday. I'll make sure I've got the right day. Yes, it is Wednesday, isn't it? And today you're going to be putting all your knowledge. Sorry, no, we're not. We're going to be using relative clauses to write about the history of Australia and transportation as well. So to start off with, then. A bit of a rewind. What was Captain Cook's ship called? What was the name of the island he visited before Australia? What did Cook call the part of Australia when he first landed on the west coast? Give me 4 relative pronouns. And what does a relative clause tell us more about? So answer those questions, pause the video, and I'll give you the answers in a second. Okay, so hopefully you remember that the Captain Cook ship was called the Endeavour. The name of the island he visited before Australia was Tahiti. And what did Cook call the part of Australia when he first landed? Was the New South Wales. And 4 relative pronouns. They can be, remember your W words and your that. So that could be who, whose, which, where, and then that, obviously. What does a relative clause tell us more about? It tells us more about the noun. Hopefully you've rewound your knowledge to yesterday and Monday as well. We're going to look at this video now. So if I share this, I've also put this on the PDF for today as well. Let me just share the right screen this time. There we go. So this is going to tell us about how different colonies were built in Australia at the time, and what we did with or how we managed to get our criminals over there. I did mention that the other day. Why they were put over there, and what we did whilst they were over there, what they did to help regarding building these different colonies and different settlements as well. So these were called penal colonies. These were the colonies where we had criminals making them as a punishment. Really, that was their punishment, was to come over and make them. And then if you wanted to, obviously if you weren't a criminal, you could also go over to Australia if you could afford it and try then and find a new way of life whilst you're over in Australia as well. So I'll just press play on this and we'll watch it together. Colonies. So straight away I'm thinking, right, so we almost colonized America years and years before this happened. And then they broke out and said, no, we want independence, we want to govern ourselves. And so then we, as Britain, probably thought, well, we want to still be the most powerful empire in the world. So we're going to have to do exactly what we did to America to somewhere else. So we did exactly the same thing over in Australia. So those ships there, that was almost like a floating prison beforehand, before we took them over to Australia. So we had these old warships and we put them out there and just left them floating in the sea. They didn't float off into the sea, they just floated a mile offshore. Yeah, and these things were called hulks. Quite a few things there to get you over to Australia as a criminal, stealing something more than 5 shillings, sorry, 5 shillings or more, rioting as well was one thing, forgery was another thing as well, so forging different documents. All these things would put you, sorry, as a punishment, you'd be taken to Australia. Quite a huge punishment, really, isn't it, for stealing something like 5 shillings? Which one do you think you're going to choose? You can either go to Australia as a criminal and help build a settlement, or get killed. Which one do you reckon most people chose, do you think? So free settlers are the people who've gone over to Australia as free people to then try and find a better way of life. So they could buy criminals as servants. But then what was quite interesting, what they said there was an ex-criminal, an ex-convict, so somebody who'd already done their time, who probably didn't have enough money to get back to Britain afterwards, would then be able to become a free settler and get the different criminals for their own servants as well. Think was wrong if a criminal was using their own clothing? What do you think we couldn't tell about this criminal if they were just stood next to somebody else like a free settler? All I've just said there then is that people tried to escape, but because of the wilderness of Australia, because it was so vicious, I suppose, they didn't really get very far. They probably got so far, realised they got no water or were being chased by something, so tried to turn around and come back, or they ended up going so far that they couldn't then turn around and come back, so they ended up dying out there. That's quite similar to holes that we're reading at the moment, isn't it? But what's quite they said there then is that you could get taken to Australia for 7 years or more, depending on what crime you've done, up to life. And then most of the time you'd probably end up with a pardon or like a certificate of leave. They said there if you got like a 7 year sentence, if you worked hard in that time in your sentence, you'd probably only work for about 4 years, and then you get given this pardon where you'd then become a free settler. It's quite a lot of people, isn't it? 165,000 people um, then ended up getting transported to Australia. Right, let's have a look at the work that I want you to do today then. Let me put you back over to this, over here, and the work I want you to do. So you're going to sort of design, I suppose, or make your own convict. I've attached this to today's PDF, but by all means, you could just draw your own in your own book and put there, fill in these things here. But I've also given you this as well, which are the different crimes that they got sent to Australia for. So if I just show you that, I just need to share a different screen with you. Where is it? This one. No, that one there. So let me just make that a bit. There you go. So hopefully you can see that now. If not, I apologise. So these are the sort of different things that they would get sent to Australia for. So petty theft, burglary or housebreaking, highway robbery, believe it or not, stealing clothing, stealing animals, military offences. So that's some soldiers called Marines were sent to Australia because and became convicts for desertion. So that's like leaving, trying to escape the army or almost for not obeying orders. or for rebelling against their officers, they will just be sent to Australia. Assaulting people, deceiving people, so forgery as well, creating fake money, and then also by protesting against the government as well, we would then also be sent to Australia for it. So quite a few crimes there for you to put next to your convict. So this thing here. So if I share my camera to you, you should hopefully see the one I've come up with and make that a bit bigger. So this is what I wanted to look like inside your book. Obviously, I've tried to draw it. I'm terrible at drawing, as you can see. Your drawing is obviously going to be a lot better than mine. Today's date, English, so I can obviously see which one what the work is when I come to market. And then you're just going to come up with these things. So George Dawes was his name here. Well, how old was he? What was his crime? He was stealing animals. And then the sentence, I put 7 years, but I've also then put in parentheses here in brackets, 4 years if well behaved. Because I like that idea that I learned something from that video there. So that's your first thing that I want you to have a go at. Once you've done that, we then need to design the ship that they're going to be transported to Australia in. So let me just stop the camera for now. That camera and change to. No, I want to show you this. Sorry, the first fleet. Sorry, that's your activity. Bear with me 1 second. So it's this one here. Now this will be a separate PDF that I'll post out for you. This has got loads of different ships on the first fleet. So remember Captain Cook discovered, well, I say discovered Australia. He explored the east coast for Britain. He wasn't on this though, on this fleet of ships. He was on the Endeavour. He then came back to Britain, told us all about it. We then sort of started to settle these colonies, and then this was the first fleet of convicts that was sent over there. So we've got this one there, the Alexander. I'm sure some people enjoy the name of that. The skipper or the master was someone called Duncan Sinclair. It then tells you how many crew we've got on there, how many Marines and family we've got on there, the number of convicts, 195 males on there, and then just some additional sort of factual information there. Alexander was the largest ship in the fleet. Little is known about the ship after her return journey, and she disappeared from records in 1808. Now, all ships are referred to as she or her, always thought of as being a lady, ships are. And then there's loads of different ships on here. So there was one, let me try and find it. Yeah, this one, the Friendship. Nice, the Friendship. So during the return to England, the crew suffered from scurvy, which was sort of like a disease. Without enough crew members to man the ship, it sank, and the survivors were then transferred to the Alexander. So it was coming back from Australia, they then got put back onto the Alexander as well. But there's loads of different ships on here for you just to read about. What you're going to do is design your own ship using this thing here. If I zoom out a bit, you're going to then draw a little picture of your ship. You're going to give your ship a name, the master, the weight of the ship, the length, the height, and it's basically what we'll just be looking at. So the number of crew on there, number of convicts, important dates and locations, so anything that sort of happened to the ship, but then interesting facts that you want to put on there as well. So if I share one that I did on the screen, sorry, where am I? If I share this, this is something that I did here. So I'll call the ship name the Bighted Barker. The master there was Captain Barker. You know, I'm really imaginative there. I've got the weight and the height and everything, the number of crew, number of convicts on there. I've also put some children as convicts. I've also put an important date. Well, October the 4th is a very important date to me. 1987, though, not 1887. So the Bight of Barker almost crashed on the shores of New Zealand. And then interesting facts are put here. Captain Barker, who was a zealous motivator of his crew, rescued a baby whale from some vicious white sharks whilst deep in the Pacific Ocean. The whale followed the ship for 6 months, and the crew named her Sheila. Just something I came up with there. So inside your books, if I put my camera on, this is what I did inside my book as well. So it's just to show you that you just do it straight underneath the work I did there. And then I drew my ship, not the best at all, but I tried. And then I started then just filling it out next to it as well. So at the end of the lesson then, you should have something that looks like this, so your criminal, your convict, and then your ship to go on there as well. So take a picture of that, put it onto Class Dojo for us, and I will look forward to reading all the interesting facts that you come up with, and I shall see you tomorrow. Bye.